Since 2018, a lot's gone on in the world. The pandemic, the agency model, the FCA inquiry, the rollout of Consumer Duty. The world just keeps on moving and changing. So back in 2018, we carried out some research and produced a white paper called The Attitudes Towards Online Retailing. Since 2018, a lot's gone on in the world. We've had the pandemic, which obviously completely transformed retailing for a couple of years. We've then had the agency model. Today we have the FCA carrying out their inquiry into discretionary commissions, and the world just keeps on moving and changing. This has all had a big impact in the way that retailers sell vehicles, both online and in the showroom. We've seen a number of things ourselves and wanted to kind of examine those further. So back in November 2023, we commissioned some research where we surveyed 1,000 used car buyers and to really get to understand the buying process. It's all from a consumer's perspective. We wanted to see how they feel about the process. We looked at both online, offline, and that kind of hybrid approach of combining both online and offline. We kind of interviewed a number of them to really drill into the buying process, what they liked, what they didn't like. We've looked to identify 5 key trends, and that's really what the white paper is about, looking at what are those key trends, where is the world moving to, what is that customer behavior, what does it look like, and how will that impact retailers, lenders moving forward. This is available to download from our website, and I'm sure you're going to find it very insightful. So the first trend that we've seen is that there is a move towards online. It's growing, and it's growing at a decent rate. What's really interesting from the 2018 research and the most recent research is that we're now seeing 39% of consumers that prefer the online model, whilst exactly 39% prefer the showroom model, with the 22% remaining saying that both models work for them equally as well. And that is a big shift from previous research that we carried out. So one really interesting stat that came out was that 74% of consumers say they want some sort of online process as part of their buying journey. Now, when we go back to our 2018 research, this is leapt by 27%. So a huge increase in terms of people that see online as part of that buying journey. So one interesting statistic that came out of the research was 34% of buyers actually visited the dealer's website on a daily basis prior to buying the vehicle. This kind of goes to show the importance of having sufficient tools on the website to keep that engagement as well, and also product positioning. If the customer hasn't bought finance yet, where is your finance proposition? If your customer isn't a prime customer, do you have non-prime lenders available? Do you have tools for part exchange? All these things become hugely important when that visitor is returning to the website on a regular basis. And keeping vehicle information up to date is also key. So when we carried out the interviews, we also established that some people just don't like to talk to people and they prefer to do all things online, whether that's booking a restaurant online, buying clothes online, actually doing most of the vehicle process online isn't surprising. It was quite interesting that the roles of Cazoo and Cinch have had a major play on customers' understanding. Consumers now realise they can buy cars online. They felt far more comfortable with that and were happier with a click and collect or even the vehicle being delivered. And if anything is to come out of that huge marketing spend, is that it has benefited the motor trade in terms of the awareness of buying vehicles online. It is now available, and it's commonly available across most dealers in some form. So that's the big upside. It's quite clear that a number of consumers just didn't want to speak to dealers. They wanted that process to be online. So I think one key thing to define is what we refer to as an online sale. We look at this as being someone that either completes the whole purchase online, where the vehicle is ultimately delivered to their home without any dealer contact, or secondly, where they order the vehicle, they go through all the process online, but they arrange a click and collect and may finalise some of the paperwork within the showroom, but ultimately it was an online transaction. So when we look at key influences, 31% of buyers looked at dealer reviews, and that helped them make the decision to buy online. However, the number one influence were friends and family that had bought online, and 61% of respondents said that that was the key driver. So I think it's really important to note that friends and family are such a huge influencer in this, and your customers also become your brand ambassadors, your advocates. and looking at ways in which you can incentivize them to talk about their good experiences to friends and family is going to be key. Yes, reviews are important without doubt. I know that some people will be skeptical of reviews and looking at the numbers, and yeah, high numbers of reviews are going to be key. But if this research tells us one thing, it's that friends and family is actually probably even more important. So clearly funding the vehicle is a key consideration for the customer. We carried out research around this and wanted to establish what was the preferred customers' funding method, what alternatives did they look at. I guess the good news is that 47% of consumers saw dealer finance as their number one go-to option. However, what was interesting, something that we hadn't actually considered, was 31% of consumers looked at online vehicle brokers offering motor finance solutions as an alternative. This is probably a big change as the online providers have perhaps position themselves through vehicle marketplaces with aggressive PPC campaigns. And of course, there is pros and cons. They can introduce, I suppose, pre-packaged deals where the customer's already approved and leads into dealers, but they also will take the finance commission for that and sometimes charge a fee for introducing the customer. So there's lots of things to consider there. And if retailers want to own more of that space, then I guess finance needs to be more prominent on their website, offering more choice. Bear in mind that prime lenders typically decline 50% of all applications. So offering a choice of lenders makes sense. You need to cover the whole risk appetite of your customer base. And with most dealers, it is going to be pretty extensive because you ultimately get super prime to ultimately super declines. And so you need to cover off with a broader spectrum of lenders. And offering that choice provides more confidence for consumers, knowing that you can cover all different risk appetites. That also applies then to bring in things like eligibility checking tools, which will make life much easier for the customer. We've seen from our own research that for every customer that applies online for finance, at least 10 of them will carry out an eligibility check prior to that. So when we looked at ease of access for information, finance didn't score that well. Only 55% of respondents said it was easy to find. The clear takeaway from that is to raise the profile of finance, to raise what options that you have available, the products, the risk appetite, and very much the prominence of that monthly payment. We've often seen over the years that websites contain finance information, but it's often tucked away at the bottom of the page. I think that when you look at the amount of revenue generated from finance, the sales that it helps to drive forward is that you've got to give it more prominence. If consumers are looking at online vehicle brokers, it's because it's a viable alternative. What retailers need to do is to make their proposition more viable. If we go back to 2023, in July, we saw the rollout of Consumer Duty. So we thought it pertinent to carry out some research around compliance and kind of get the customer sentiments towards their view of how finance was sold. Yeah, there was some, I think, encouraging statistics on this in the sense that 87% of respondents felt that the process was fair and transparent. 82% of respondents felt in control, and 85% felt they had sufficient information. So overall good. I think there's always going to be room for improvement. A target of 100% is actually potentially achievable here. And it's certainly going to be a key takeaway that all retailers certainly need to kind of carry out their own research with their own customers to ensure this part of the process is watertight and there is continuous improvement. So when we examine more around the finance products, we found that 88% of consumers were very confident that they'd chosen the right product. What was kind of really encouraging was 91% said that the online vehicle finance process was easy to understand. I guess one that did drop down a little bit was 83% felt that the finance choices they were offered represented fair value. So still a high score, but this was the lowest scoring element in this section. Around personal data, 87% agreed that the data was and how it's going to be handled was fully explained by the dealer. So we then looked at the online tools that impressed them the most. Finance came out number one, so 35% of respondents picked finance. Part exchange number two at 19% and reservation number three at 17%. However, when we started to drill further into the part exchange process, we found that this was probably the least satisfying area of all, because most customers or many customers have a part exchange, but there are large numbers of them that were dissatisfied with the part exchange solution. So 51% of respondents said that they want to carry out a part exchange valuation. but of that, less than half, 44%, could. This led to a great deal of frustration in that journey because it effectively broke the journey. So this is an area that is probably now the most challenging, as part exchanges and valuations are very subjective, but certainly an area to focus on. Clearly, more tools on the website help. Your customer profile will vary dramatically. There'll be those customers that don't want finance, don't want to check themselves for eligibility, don't want to talk to dealers face to face, and would much prefer to reserve the vehicle online and manage the transaction online. But if they haven't got these options, you are going to preclude a large chunk of your customer base or potential customer base. These are the customers you don't see. So the customers that don't buy from you or don't engage with you is simply probably because your website doesn't have all the functions that are required. So one of the key takeaways is to carry out a full audit, what features are missing, and probably question yourself as to why they are missing. So what are the key lessons that we've learned from the white paper? Well, when we asked the respondents how they're looking to buy the next vehicle, 3 out of 4 said they were looking to buy their next vehicle online. Yeah, we've heard these stats before, but there is this move towards this pure online play or online play with a click and collect. So I think what's going to be key in this process is actually breaking down each stage of that buying journey, switching more of that journey to an online model. Online models are much lower cost than the offline model, the showroom model, far more efficient. So the more of the process we can drive online, the better. You know, this gives great customer experiences. We've seen that. You know, customers like the online journeys. So I think collectively the industry is doing a very good job around that. Clearly areas of improvement are going to be required in some parts, as discussed. This hybrid model of part online, part offline is here to stay. The role of the showroom is key in all of this. Consumers still want to touch and feel the car and it be part of the buying process. And clearly the test drive is still important. Online tools will drive engagement. Make sure those tools are there. Without those tools, you're missing out on certain customer segments. When it comes to finance specifically, then make sure that you've got a good choice of lenders on there to cover that kind of risk appetite for lenders, but also the profile of your customer base. You know, you've got an objective to enable the consumer to reach kind of good outcomes and achieve their financial objectives. That's a consumer duty requirement. So to do that, you probably need to make sure you have a panel of lenders that are on there. Raise the profile of finance, because you're probably losing a lot of finance income to other companies and other parties where customers have been attracted by aggressive PPC campaigns or vehicle marketplaces promoting other lenders, online brokers, for instance. So there's still work to be done around that. And then we got to look at compliance. You know, compliance is key. If customers are liking these online journeys, then put more of your compliance online. Speed up the process, make it easier for the consumer. You know, think consumer first. It takes away some of the kind of, I guess, operating burden and administration from the showroom and switch it online. Something that we've seen personally, it's been hugely successful. So that's certainly one big area to consider going forward. So hopefully you'll find the paper of real use to you, whether it be you're in sales or compliance operations. You know, feel free to download it, and it's ideal for lenders, OEMs, and also for retailers.